A reminder for the tradition of the first speeches, and everyone was excellent during your speech, which was not the first speech, but even so the behaviour is exemplary. I call the member for Light.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I congratulate you on your election as the 39th Speaker of the South Australian House of Assembly. On the southern wall of the old chamber of the South Australian Parliament hangs a portrait of our state's second governor, Lieutenant Colonel George Gawler. In 1837, Governor Gawler tasked the colony's Surveyor-General, Colonel William Light, with the establishment of the colony's second settlement north of Adelaide. Established 2 years later, it bears the governor's name. It was a little surprise to the traditional owners of this land, the Kaurna people, that Colonel Light chose to lay out a new town across 4,000 acres of land along the waterways now known as the Paras, both north and south, and the Gawler River. The junction and banks of these rivers were, and continue to be, the world's oldest continuous living culture, a meeting place. Today, I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. I do so standing in the chamber in which South Australia established a First Nations voice to Parliament. Today in this chamber, we represent First Nations culture, our colonial history and 190 years of migration and cultural exchange. None of it should be rejected. All of it must be understood. We are stronger and better when we accept and understand our past, rather than trying to rewrite it or reject it. We must walk together. The electorate I represent today is a regional centre on the northern edge of metropolitan Adelaide, proud of its historical role in state development and its long-established local community. I'm only the 10th person to have the honour of being elected as the member for Light since its establishment as a single-member district back in 1938. Like all in our community, I owe a debt of gratitude to my predecessor, the Honourable Antonio Piccolo, and recognise his remarkable contribution and period of service. He took a chance on me almost 16 years ago. He opened doors to me professionally and provided me with mentorship, even if sometimes it took me a while to see the wisdom of that advice. Mr. Piccolo's contribution is unique and it is irreplaceable. I won't promise to replicate him, but I can promise to hold myself to his high standards and apply myself with his same energy and vigour. My belief in the power of government begins amidst the fall of Thatcherism and 18 years of Tory government, defined by trickle-down economics and a desire to take a nation back to basics. Together with millions of Brits, we began to believe that things could only get better. Through the lens of Cool Britannia, optimism cascaded through the national consciousness. A belief that the Labor movement, a new Labor, led by a charismatic leader whose father lectured at the University of Adelaide, could deliver a renewed social contract. A belief in a politics for the people, a politics that held true to the promise that one's lot in life wasn't determined by birthright, but built on one's aptitude and attitude. A belief that the Opportunity Society could unharness constraint, that franchise, universal healthcare, social security and education could unlock the future and maximise human potential. These awakenings proved to be the foundations of my improbable path to this place. It's a journey that begins some 16,500 kilometres away in a coastal town of Shoreham by Sea, nestled among the rolling chalk hills of the South Downs on the English coast. With global change in the air, it was a little surprise I was born with a thirst for adventure and new worlds. The firstborn son of an aeronautical engineer and a clerical officer, the grandson of armed service personnel and a nurse on my father's side, and teachers on my mother's, we moved to Sweden, experiencing its sub-zero temperatures, then to the US in the twin cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul, before a final stop in the peach state of Georgia. With the arrival of my younger brother, Mum and Dad decided to return to the UK and England, with its mountains, green, pleasant pastures and clouded hills. Soon, rural lands laced with waterfalls, rivers, fern-filled gorges, wildflower-strewn trails and dark skies full of stars would be the backdrop for childhood adventures and mischievousness, a place where a child only had to worry about being a child. My early years at Lunganada Primary School gave a curious kid the opportunity to challenge the orthodoxy, traits taken up with gusto at Gwinnett High School, where I made lifelong friends, who I understand are streaming the South Australian Parliament for the first time, and perhaps not the last. It was in the Hogwarts-style manor home to our high school where Julie Rees first exposed me to the classics and modern literature, the subtle questions each posed about the human condition. She encouraged me to think differently, to ask hard questions and to push boundaries. Traits I'm sure some of my former bosses in this place continue to curse. But in doing so, she imparted a wisdom that has stuck with me. A wisdom that made clear one can only understand a person by considering things from their point of view, and it cannot truly be done until you've climbed into their skin and walked around in it. When I was 17, my family made a choice that changed my world. It was the afternoon of the 7th of July 2005, the day after the London bombings and the day after London had secured the 2012 Olympics. We were to move to South Australia. It was a leap of faith. Little did we know that a farmers' union was not an agricultural collective, and a check side wasn't an Australian chess move. Our only knowledge of our new homeland was defined by life on Ramsay Street, Crocodile Dundee, and intense sporting rivalries, albeit the ledger on our side following Johnny's drop goal and Flintoff's heroics. With tears shed, final goodbyes, the churn of butterflies in the stomach, a chapter closed. The next would open on the 2nd of November 2005, as the soles of the shoes of a father and his 2 sons would meet Australian soil. The wheels of our Cathay Pacific flight touched down at Adelaide Airport. Leo Barry's hangar and Maccabi Diva's 3rd cup were fresh in the air. We were greeted not by friends or familiar faces, but by a waft of hot air and the promise of the lucky country. Each served as a stark reminder of our arrival half a world away in a strange hemisphere. I'll never forget that summer. The novelty of a hot Christmas, sun-kissed days at Glenelg Beach, exploring every inch of Adelaide Oval, and seeing Brian Lara becoming the leading scorer in Test match cricket. When it came time to lay down roots in our new home, we did so on a rural block on the outskirts of a place matching its promise to deliver the best of town and country. A town called Gawler, a town laid out by light. The community, curious and cautious in equal measure of 3 outsiders, proved welcoming. Firstly, through Xavier College, and then on cricket pitches and football fields. These arenas showcased the best of the Australian ethos. Arms were wrapped around new arrivals. Before long, I was appointed to a position of great trust and serious influence in any Australian community, that of the local barman. It was here I was invited into celebrations of accomplishment, the drowning of sorrows and escapism from the ordinary across the Kingsford Hotel bar. The dollars I earned pulling pints and listening to stories helped facilitate the next chapter of my life, study at the University of Adelaide. I spent countless hours, many of them on the Gawler line, absorbing the lessons of some of history's greatest minds and reflecting on the man I wanted to become and the society in which I wanted to live. The abstract became concrete when the GFC hit. Back home in the UK, I saw friends suffering the crippling effects of austerity. But here, once again, I saw the impact of government. This time, led by an Australian called Kev, who was here to help, willing to step up and prevent a recession. The years rolled on, Labor governments built South Australia, Adelaide's skyline grew, our iconic oval was redeveloped, the stream of university friends departing for Melbourne and Sydney slowed to a trickle. Then an ad in the Bunyip was brought to my attention by Andrew Anson, who may not forgive me this mention in hindsight. The member for Light was looking for someone to help him deliver for my community. We worked hard together, and armed with a freshly minted law degree, I learnt what true public service looked like. The office atop of Murray Street was more than a building. It housed a passion for building stronger communities, founded in a belief that better results were always attained by bringing people together. Mr. Piccolo and I fought many battles together. We ensured those without a voice were heard. Rarely were we on the losing side. Yet almost a decade after I finished working with him, it was still a surprise when he called me into his office a couple of floors above this chamber and asked if I'd ever considered running for Parliament. To be honest, the first thing that popped into my head with that question was a quote from The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. No, it wasn't "don't panic," although that does remain exceptionally good advice. It was this quote: It is a well-known fact that those people who must want to rule people are ipso facto those least suited to do so. So I gave my answer, no. I hadn't thought about running for Parliament. Tony suggested I keep it in mind. I had no idea of the sacrifice he was about to make in the belief of our party's values. Of course, while we can decide to run for Parliament, in the end it is and will always be the people of our state who decide if we will represent them. I'm grateful that he saw something in me, but my deepest gratitude will always belong to the people of Light. Eventually the answer to his question became a yes. As I embarked on this next mission, I reflected on the support and guidance of one mentor who would not be able to accompany me throughout the campaign, David Francis Pedler. David and I started in the Light electorate office in the same week of July 2010. David gained the mantle of Community Dave, allowing me to dive into the machinations of public office and using its powers to deliver for our community. He allowed me to make mistakes. He provided invaluable support. Without his guidance and mentorship, today's privilege simply would not have been possible. David passed away a couple of years before the opportunity to become the Labor candidate for Light presented itself. But there was only one name I could ever put atop of my nomination form, his. Sadly, that wasn't possible, but I'm grateful that David's wife, Janet, allowed me to pay my respects to my friend by writing her name in memory and respect of David. I'm incredibly proud to be able to welcome David's family to this place today, and I thank you for being part of this journey. After I received the endorsement from our party to follow Mr. Piccolo's footsteps, I packed up my belongings, said goodbye to a talented and dedicated public servant, a job I loved, and returned to the same office where my life in politics began. This time, the challenge was very different. This time, instead of trying to persuade the people of Light to vote for Tony Piccolo, my job was to persuade them to vote for an English migrant called James. Over the next 13 months, stories were shared with old friends. I met the next generation of those who will call Gawler home and reconnected with the community that had welcomed me and its characters that make it so special. After an unrelenting campaign, the most surreal of experience presented itself, a ballot paper with my name on it. I thank everyone who donated their time in support of my campaign and candidacy. I would not be standing here today if not for your support. We must never forget that the ballot box must be the sole place to resolve grievances, and I thank the people of Light, no matter how you cast your vote, for your belief in democracy. Unfortunately, there are now too few places in the world where we can stand in a polling booth for hours, disagree respectfully, before then assisting one another to pack up. We must never lose sight of that, or what it says about us as Australians. I thank my opponents, notably Alexander Banks and Andrew Williamson, for putting up their hands to serve. I also thank their supporters for the manner in which they conducted themselves throughout the campaign. To all members, new and experienced, congratulations on your election to the 56th Parliament. Wherever we sit in this chamber and whatever we stand for, we are all driven by determination to make a difference. I didn't run for Parliament on a promise to have all the answers, but I can promise my community I will never cease asking questions. I'm here to serve and to learn. I will be a representative who listens, a representative who does not lecture, and a representative who ensures your voices are heard. I will ensure the pressures and demands of growth are acknowledged and responded to, that infrastructure which enhances our community is built. I will ensure the fundamental promise embodied in the slogan, "The best of town and country," is fulfilled. I will ensure the promise of economic prosperity translates across our region, that economic anxiety is replaced with hope, and that new economies and industries of a reimagined and empowered North are always within reach. I will strive to deliver a North ready to once again shoulder the state's economy with the pride of a roaring lion, supported and nurtured by governments with an unwavering belief in the principles of a fair day's work for a fair day's pay. And I will repay the faith of the only party who stands and fights for the North rather than succumbing to the folly of the age of rage. Politics is not a vocation which respects boundaries. For that, Emily, I am truly sorry. I am very grateful for your love, your unwavering support, and for indulging my spirit of adventure. I'm exceptionally grateful for the quirk of fate which was responsible for our meeting in Mr. Foley's history class all those years ago. Virgil, possibly now one of the most spoilt Vizslers in the history of his breed, having now got his name into Hansard, and I are exceptionally lucky to have you in our lives, even when we are both in trouble for leaving our toys around the house. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. To Big Jim and Maria, I can only imagine your reaction when Emily came home to ask if the kid who'd just arrived from the UK could join you on a family weekend away to the York Peninsula. Thank you for welcoming me to your family as one of your own. You should be exceptionally proud of the children you've raised and the indelible marks on their character you've left. Each have kindness and compassion at their core. It would also, at this juncture, be remiss of me not to acknowledge that Big Jim once set foot on this floor long before I ever did. His work, procuring tab slips and long necks for MPs and ushers, vital to a smooth operation of this place in a very different era. Maria, amid the challenges you face, your fight, commitment and devotion to your family is a testament to your character and resilience. We are exceptionally lucky to have you in our corner. Come what may, rest assured Emily and I will be there for you. To my dad, thank you for making the trip down for Brisbane at short notice. It was your courage that brought us here. It was your willingness to be a global citizen that stirred my interest in the world. It was your encouragement and desire for me to question the conventional wisdom that has always been backed up with the support that has enabled me to expand my horizons and shaped my life, which has led me to today. To my mum, watching in the UK, you've gifted me with perhaps an irrational confidence, but a belief nonetheless that I can do anything I turn my mind to. It's an exceptional power to have. Thank you both. I lost my grandmother in September last year. Her passing paved the way for my grandfather to make his first trip to Australia at the youthful age of 95. Shirley Jean Johnson was one of the strongest-willed women I have ever met. I'm not sure she'll quite know what to make of her eldest grandchild becoming a politician, but I have no doubt she'd be willing to hold me to account. Grandad, who has now decided that he'll be living to at least 104, is the best grandfather anyone could ask for. I'll be eternally grateful that he came to share in my election. Grandad's last words to me before returning home were simply, "Be good." I intend to heed that advice. I firmly believe there are easier ways to earn a dollar than subjecting yourself to the scrutiny and free advice that seeking public office elicits. And whilst the population may view our profession with cynicism, and at times rightly so, I do not believe there is one among us who enters this place without the desire to do good and to leave our state better than we found it. I cast my mind back to the weeks after the 2018 state election and now look around this chamber and that of the National Parliament to see the faces of those who rebuilt our party after 16 years in government. Together, we returned our party to power in one short term. No one did more heavy lifting in that period than the member for West Torrens, our state's treasurer and the father of this house. Throughout our years in the wilderness, I witnessed one of the greatest political minds in action. You are a lion of our movement, and I'm exceptionally grateful for everything I learnt from you. To the member for Spence, Matt Burnell, I thank you and your team for your support, counsel and opening for doors for me throughout the campaign. Together, we face challenges, not just as rival Magpies and Demon supporters, but I'm confident together we will overcome them. The people we represent require us to succeed. To the member for Taylor and the minister who I had the privilege to serve in one of the most rewarding periods of my career, thank you. I recall with great fondness our conversation in your springtime yellow Mustang in which we mulled what the world could look like after March 2018 on a drive down the Southern Expressway. You placed a remarkable faith in me to reimagine our state's international investment programs and to lead your team as we tackled some of the most urgent and wicked problems imaginable in public life. You are now far more than a former boss, and I look forward to recanting our war stories over a rum in the coming years. Which leads me to the Premier of our state. I'm not sure if it was with good humour that you partnered the member for Taylor and I, or a belief that two mavericks may just balance each other out. But as you have a knack of, you succeeded. I congratulate you on your historic victory. It is a remarkable accomplishment and a vote of confidence in your leadership. I'm grateful that my name, accompanied by Mr Piccolo's recommendation, made its way onto a napkin over a decade ago. To have seen your rise from appointment to cabinet in the Wetherell government to becoming our state's 47th Premier is a ride I've been exceptionally fortunate to have had front row seats for. I thank you for continuing to place your faith in me. Our party is tremendously fortunate to have your talents. Our state is even more fortunate to have you lead it. We thank your family for lending you to us. You have already transformed our state, its fortunes and its future, and there are many more pages of the story still to be written. I've had the privilege to learn from some of the finest political staff in our nation, and an even greater honour to be able to call many of you friends. While your faces are unseen, you work tirelessly and under the same pressures and constraints as those who are elected. For that service, I thank you. You are the foundation from which the principles of this movement are built and how the ideas we litigate become reality. To Josh Peake and the SDA family, the union movement more broadly, the reason our party exists. Thank you for your friendship, counsel and leadership. To Reggie and Eamon, you've made the South Australian branch of the Labor Party the envy of the nation, an election-winning machine that continues to show up and deliver results for the people of South Australia. Our state is better as a result of your contributions. To my old teammates at the Adelaide University Soccer Club, many of whom I shared beers with at law school, and my current brothers and sisters in black at Adelaide University Rugby Club, along with my numerous other friends scattered across the globe, thank you for being you and for allowing me to be me. You provide me with a haven away from politics to be as normal as someone who has run for public office can be, and remind me of who I am and why I chose to serve. Politics is the art of the possible, and for that reason, the art and belief in what is possible, I stand here to write the next chapter in an improbable journey that has become a reality. Australia is built upon the labour of migrants, a nation that welcomed with open arms those who sought new beginnings. It is my task, it is our task, to ensure this remains a place where that migrant dream of a better life built through hard work is possible for anyone and respected by everyone. I understand the scale of the challenge ahead. People across our community cast their ballot either in protest or a desire for change. The result is an instruction to listen. I heard anxiety on the campaign trail about the cost of living, an inability to buy a house, and parents questioning whether their children would be afforded the same opportunities of which they were beneficiaries. Sometimes I heard anger, sometimes I heard fear. Those concerns are real. They must not be diminished. These are the questions we must answer and the challenges we must rise to. But that's not all I heard. I also found neighbours who look out for one another, a community that sticks together through good times and hard times, and people who ask what they can do for you before asking anything in return. That's the light I know. That's the light that welcomed me. And that's the community I have the privilege to serve. For it's this community that took a boy from the south coast of England, made him one of their own, and gave him the privilege to be their voice. I intend to spend every day in this place repaying that honour. As I end my remarks, indulge me in reflecting on the words of Winston Churchill. In his first address to the Commons as Prime Minister, he said, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears and sweat. The people of Light and the people of South Australia will have them all in abundance from me. I thank you."